Hey there, community. This is a very impromptu live session. It's going to be brief. We'll only be here in and out in a few minutes, but I wanted to record this and I figured, well, if I'm going to record it, I might as well do it live, see who shows up. No big deal. But anyway, I got a question, and let me share my screen here. I'll go small, maybe. There we go. Got a question last week about an iRule using the catch command. And typically in basic iRules, you really don't use catch that much, but it allows you to slurp errors, so you can run things. And if you do run an error, it kind of keeps it from sending a log file, or like filling up your log file with errors. And so there's different things you can do with it, but this is a very simple version of the larger iRule that he was working on. But the basics of it is he's running this iRule, and no matter what he was doing, if it wasn't erroring, it logged 100% of the time. And he's like, what's up with that? And so, if we take a look at that iRule, let's just walk through it real quick. So during an HTTP request, the priority 1 here is set, and priority isn't consequential to this particular rule, but you set the priority to be able to order when your iRules fire. So typically the default priority for all iRules is 500, and they fire in the order implicitly that they're ordered in the GUI. So if you add rules and you add them, 5 in a row, the one on top is going to fire first, the one on the bottom is going to fire last, even though they're all priority 500. So setting priorities explicitly in your iRules allows you to manage that a little bit more effectively. And so you can set your priorities from 1 to, I think, 999. But then you have a conditional here where it's going to catch whatever logic. And so the logic that you would be working on would be in that catch between these curly brackets here. And in this case, it's just a return statement. So this doesn't really do much. You would actually have above that return statement, you would want to be putting additional logic in. And then the goal of this iRule is once that stuff's run, then go ahead and return and jump out, because we don't want to do more things in that. So if there is an error on that catch, go ahead and log it. And the log statement here is just, hey, whatever that error was, go ahead and log that. And so the expectation was that you would return, and if there wasn't an error, then this log statement wouldn't get run. However, on their testing, it was 100% being run every time. And so what do you do about that? So if we look at the iRule here, and hopefully that's big enough in your view. I guess I don't really need to be in the marketplace there. Then it's I changed the formatting a little bit from what it was back in here, just to make it a little bit easier to see. And so the first thing that we can look at here is, well, what does catch actually, what are the return values of catch? Because in this case, whatever catch returns, and a normal operation turns 0. So if everything within catch is normal, it should return 0, and that log statement here should not fire. But because just a simple return is obviously returning a true of some kind, and how is that working out? So let's go over to the TIL documentation. And on the catch command, it says that what we expected, if everything is normal, the return code should be 0, which makes that if statement false. That if statement here should be false, and so this error will not log. But it is returning. And so if we take a look at some of these other defined exception codes, we see that number 1 is TIL error. That's when we expect, if it does fail, that it will go ahead and return that log. But what's interesting as well is you have TIL return, TIL break, and TIL continue. So if you execute any of those commands within the catch, it's going to return a positive integer, 2, 3, or 4. And if we look at the, let me go back to here. If we go to a terminal, and give me a second, I think some corporate shenanigans are happening on my terminal, so it will be a second before it shows. There we go. So if I spin up the TIL shell, and so if I do an if statement, so if I set the OK is 0, right? And then set the, what was it? Error is 1. Set error 1, and then set return to 2. Okay, so if I just do some normal testing here, if I do OK, and put string OK, and we don't get that because that's false, right? But if I do the error and I put that string, oh wait, I'll just put string error, then that returned true because it was a 1. So the other thing here is that anything here that is going to be a value is actually going to return to true. And so what I do, oh, I didn't get that together. If stupid fat fingers. And so we see that evaluates to true as well. So what do we need to do to make this work as we expected? And when I was doing a little bit of research on some of the other TIL pages, it said that it's not really a normal thing to run a return within a catch because of this scenario here, that a return is going to return a TIL error or a code that will evaluate the catch as a true condition. And so how do we fix that? Well, the fix here is within this is going to return this blue block, solid block here. That's going to return in this condition, it's going to return a 2, right? Because if we look at this TIL return, that error code that's going to be returned is a 2. We don't want to match that. Really, the only one we want to match is this 1, which is a TIL error. And so if we go back to our code and we just update this to be 1, then that is the fix action to make that iRule perform the way it should. And so, a very simple thing. Just wanted to call it out because I've been working with TIL and iRules for 20 plus years, and I did not know that about catch. That for me it was error or not error, and ultimately RTFM, right? It's in the documentation. We looked at the documentation what those error codes are, and so 1 is the one we expect, but there are others. In fact, you can even with the return code here, if we go over to return, and I'm not plugged in and my battery's about to die, so if this ends, we're going to end early. But this, you could even do something within the return code. Now, I don't know if this works properly in iRules. I think the other path of setting the correct error code on the catch command is the way to go. But I didn't know this about the return code in TIL either, is that you can actually set different codes. So anyway, always be learning, and it was great to learn something new about TIL 20 years in. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you out there in the community.
Well, thanks for checking out that video. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You might want to check out one of these videos over here. And if you haven't already, go check out community.f5.com. This is where all the DevCentral Connects hosts hang out, as well as the rest of the community. It's free to sign up, and we'll see you there.